guys, welcome to Meet the Truth podcast. Today we have Christopher Brandalin.
Hello everyone, this is editor Leah jumping in, telling you to go to eplug.com and use code Leah English, all caps, for 15% off of your order. And I did not edit this episode. It probably needs editing, because me and Chris both like to ramble, but I think in a sense of reality, I don't need to edit any of these episodes, and if you're listening, you're listening. If you're not, you're not, because I'm not making any money from doing this, so yeah. And I'm rambling again, so yeah, bye.
He is a carnivore lawyer, a carnivore doctor, not a medical doctor. He's campaigning for Congress, right? And then he's also a part of Turning Point USA for their Maha thing. I don't really know exactly what all is going on.
The Healthy Coalition. They have like 7 different coalitions for Turning Points, Turning Point USA. So I'm part of the Healthy Coalition, which is alongside Bobby Kennedy's Maha movement.
Yes, that. And then he's also a carnivore who also bull rides. So he's a very well-rounded guy. So Christopher, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience?
Well, thanks for having me, Aliyah. This is so. Anyways, yeah, as you said earlier, I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a research doctor. I got my PhD, which was actually in public policy and public health recently, and I actually did that because I was the only attorney speaking out against the vaccine mandates. So, but I'll give you a little shortened summary of like 15 to 20 years of why I became carnivore. A lot of people already know, but not everybody knows. So, and since I told the story probably a couple hundred times, I got a little better at it. So I'll try to make it very efficient. So I used to be an athlete most of my life, in high school and wrestling, and then college I became a fitness trainer, and I actually started doing all natural bodybuilding as I was finishing college. But when I was in college, I was a fraternity president, so I partied my ass off. So I drank a lot and have a lot of fun. You could put everything together. But when I actually decided to go to law school, because my father doubted me to go to law school when the market crashed in 2007, I was getting my bachelor's degree. It was just in communications, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a personal trainer the rest of my life. So I decided I wanted to prove him wrong. So I got into a law school. And then that's actually where I took it to a new level, and I basically worked with some friends. I said, I want to do something. I want to do something very competitive. I want to do all natural bodybuilding because I've spoken with some other friends that are doing it, and just a very fine diet, no steroids or no HGH or anything else like that. I want to see how lean I can get because I was kind of a bulkier power lifter. I was like, I'm 5'9". I'm not that tall, but I was like 195 pounds. So I was like a stocky guy. And I wanted to get really competitive. So my colleagues referred me to a registered dietitian who works with a lot of keto athletes. So, and he kind of does a lot of, his main focus is all natural bodybuilding. No substances, just really strict diet and really intensive training because he was an athlete as well. So yeah, he put me on carb cycling, which I had to like basically very minimal carbs for a couple of days. I did, every third day of carb cycling. I followed it to the T, and I didn't. And going from a fraternity president who was drinking a bottle of tequila like every 2 nights, I didn't drink it all during law school, or at least the majority of it when I was competing. So he got me to get very lean to 155 pounds, and that's where I got ready for Mr. Los Angeles. Actually, I had like 4 different contests I won my last year, and then the last one was Mr. Los Angeles Natural. And after I won that, I just passed the bar, and I still kept like health and fitness as my main passion. So I became a dietetic technician, which is similar to a registered dietitian right after that. And then 2015, 2016, I started getting sick all of a sudden, and I couldn't really put it together, but I never went to a doctor for not feeling good. I always went to a doctor for broken bones because I've broken plenty of bones and a lot of injuries, a lot of stitches. And I went to a doctor. I was like, I'm not used to this, but I'm not really feeling well. I'm feeling very nauseous. I'm having some really stomach discomfort, like, not like pain, just discomfort, like, the bloating, the SIBO kind of bullshit. And I was like, and I'm like joint pain, like head to toe. Like I feel this really just sick. I'm not sure what's going on with me. And this is where I made the mistake because the doctor just reached for his prescription and pad immediately without even doing any testing. He's like, yeah, you most likely have a bacterial overgrowth in your stomach. So, but it's probably just a main infection, but you probably have some inflammation too. And we'll get your motility fixed. So he put me on like a course of like antibiotics, corticosteroids, and laxatives, and he completely And it was instead of becoming a routine customer or a patient, I was a routine customer. I was just cycling on pharmaceuticals for over a year. I think I was like 14 months because I started early 2016 and then going into 2017. So completely I just kept getting worse. Every time he would just, I told him, I'm not getting any better. Got so bad to the point in 2017 that a piece of my intestine got very inflamed towards the end of my intestine, like the bottom left of my my stomach. And they did colonoscopy and different scans. They said, yeah, this is a really inflamed part of my intestine. But I didn't have this problem at the first because it was just discomfort. But then a year later, after wrecking my gut, it was gut pain. So I basically, I said, what am I going to do? And they all said, hey, we got to refer you to a surgeon because you got to discuss your options. And I'm like, great. I mean, I can't believe this got this bad. And the surgeon kind of like, yeah, I can guarantee you this piece of your intestine is a major problem. And if you remove this piece of your intestine, you're going to feel a lot better. And he's like, it'll be laparoscopic surgery in and out. You'll go in, you'll be out like 1 or 2 days. And I'm like, really? If you could probably say, yeah, I know you want to have your life back because you used to be a very competitive athlete and now you're just getting sick all the time. So anyways, that's where it went wrong because right when I had the surgery first thing in the morning, I woke up prematurely from the surgery where they didn't give me enough anesthesia or something, or they give me proper anesthesia where I woke up as they were sewing up my intestines. So I woke up in extreme pain, screamed very loud, and then they just drugged me up to the morphine and tramadol, put me back to sleep for a couple days, and then they released me a couple days later without even me moving my bowels. So I started having complications for the next couple of weeks. More pain, it was more bleeding because it was very painful. And then it got to a point where a couple weeks later, I started developing a big grapefruit-sized infection, like 2 inches below my belly button with the main part of the incision. And some of the nurses told me to disregard it. They're like, oh, it's just hematoma. Don't worry about it. It's a physician's assistant. Said, oh, it's just hematoma. Don't worry about it. You're always worried. I'm like, no, this is a big thing because I actually have the photos. It's very gruesome. And then when I showed it to the surgeon, he said, no, you know what? Get to the ER ASAP. We got to cut it open immediately. We got a major infection. They didn't have time to put me under and all that. They said, hey, we're just going to inject some lidocaine. And they cut me back open while I was fully awake. So that's why I built a good pain tolerance. And this is why I have a good passion, why I'm technically kind of sometimes an angry person, is that they cut me open the entire time and they didn't want to sew it back up. So I was biting my tongue the entire time, like bleeding from my mouth because it was so painful. But I didn't want to move because I didn't want them to screw it up again. And then after they cut it open, drained all the infection out, okay, I also, are you going to sew it back up? They're like, no, we're not going to sew it back up because your infection came from the inside and we want to keep the infection from coming out. So you're just going to change your gauze. You're going to stick gauze inside your wound. You're going to stuff it inside this part that we just cut you open. And you're going to change the gauze 3 times a day. And do it for a couple of weeks and it'll naturally just heal up. And I was doing that repeatedly. And then a couple of weeks later, it happened again. That started getting very inflamed and swollen, very bright red. And I had to do the same thing, cut me back open again. And so that's where I kind of learned that these doctors were not really thinking for their patient's best interest. And I became a customer rather than a patient. And then he had the audacity. I was managing after I was just in extreme pain, and I was just doing sometimes a little bit of fasting, but I was just trying to see what foods. I was eating really bland foods. I couldn't eat any spices, and I was just so in pain that he got to a point where he's like, all right, you're still having complications. I think we got to remove the rest of your intestines. And this is where I knew, like, this was a fucking evil doctor. I'm like, no, you know what? You completely ruined my life. I regret this surgery ever. I'm going to do some extensive testing because I think something's seriously wrong with me. I think it goes beyond what you just did. And I actually did do blood testing and tested positive for Lyme and co-infections, but I don't think that was the major issue. I know a lot of people that have Lyme, and a lot of it's kind of symptomatic, and sometimes they can just put in remission, like just do the simple things, or sometimes they can take like the proper antibiotics for someone that gets Lyme. But it was basically the pharmaceuticals that just completely ruined my gut. Okay? And the surgery was probably the worst. So I ended up, when I was looking into it, I was like, I got to heal. I want to keep the rest of my intestines. So I looked into the GAPS diet, which is the gut and psychology syndrome diet, healing with bone broth. I'm like, I've always eaten meat, but maybe I got to only eat meat because everybody who was healing was just doing meat. So when I looked into it, I decided to do a 10-day water fast. And when I refed on only meat, So I refed on only meat, and I felt amazing. So I put the pieces of the puzzle together. I'm like, look, I can heal with just meat right now. Let's see what else I can try to introduce. And I was trying to see if I can introduce different foods, but every time I was introducing different foods, I was eating chicken. I was even able to eat pork, and pork can sometimes just have some histamine issues, but I was eating like steak, like beef, chicken, and fish. I wasn't having any problems. I couldn't handle eggs. Eggs would just give me some kind of like allergic reactions, and it really depends on what type of eggs. I can handle duck eggs, but I can't handle chicken eggs. And then I didn't do any dairy because I'll be honest with you, I don't think dairy is carnivore anyways. But anyways, I noticed I was feeling better. I spoke with some of my friends, and so most of my friends are in the health and fitness industry. I hate most attorneys, by the way. I think I made this public statement. I don't trust most attorneys. I hate my own profession. I am disgusted with my own profession. This is why I'm trying to come back to the health, because I think most attorneys are going to burn in hell. I'm just trying to get myself less time in purgatory. That's why I'm coming back to health every day. Anyways, some of my friends were like, you know what? There's actually a diet, like a community that they only eat meat. And it's kind of crazy. It's getting a little bit more popular. This was back in 2018, because 2017 was a surgery. I was healing. I was getting problems. And early 2018, that's just when I did like the extended fast, and I felt I was a lot better. And I basically never saw that surgeon ever again. I said, I'm never going to do any follow-ups with you. I don't trust you. And I'm like, I'm going to fix this naturally. So I started, and some of my friends told me to research into this carnivore all-meat diet. And that's where I reached out to Michaela Peterson. I'm sure you may know of her. This is before she became popular, okay? And this is because she actually called me on her cell phone. I went on her she had like a mini website, and she had her YouTubes. And she actually personally called me for a 30-minute just telephone conversation, telling me to switch up all my I'm going to cook with tallow. I wasn't even so familiar with tallow at the time, because if you go to conventional grocery stores, you don't see it. You're used to I'm Italian, I'm used to olive oil, and, you get avocado oil, and there's all this other shit oils. But I'm like, no, I was like, usually I did a little bit of avocado and olive oil, and I was doing coconut oil, but I realized that coconut oil was still causing problems, just coconut oil. So I switched to tallow after I spoke with Michaela, and it was feeling a lot better. I started just getting a bunch of tallow for all my cooking and to increase my fat intake. And then I spoke with Dr. Baker right after that, in the summer of 2018. And I told him that I wanted to do something more intense, and probably just because I was working the whole time, I wanted to kind of get away and maybe stay with actually like a meat-based clinic. And that's where I found the Paleo Medicina clinic in Budapest, Hungary. I Skyped with Dr. Sophia Clemens in October of 2018, and I decided that I wanted to stay with them for about 10 days. So I flew over to Budapest, Hungary, Thanksgiving Day 2018, and she made it clear that she doesn't allow any of her patients to take any supplements, because I was still taking some multis, vitamin D, and I was still taking some herbs for the motility, because the scar tissue kind of restricted. So I would take ginger and stuff to help improve motility. She's like, no, you're not going to take any of that. I'm like, well, what about, I don't want to get backed up, because I want to make sure everything kind of keeps moving. She's like, you're going to eat plenty of animal fat. You're not going to have a problem with motility. And she was right. They would serve so much fat, because the Paleo Medicina, they go beyond the carnivore. They go 80% fat, and they only do meat. They don't do any dairy bullshit, okay? And they say you don't introduce eggs for a couple months. You stick with four-legged animals, ruminant animals, okay? And they're known for having some of the best pork in the world in Hungary. Hungary and Spain, I believe, has the best pork in the world. And they don't feed any of their pigs any corn or soy, so that's why they're more tolerable than here in the United States. You have to find a corn-free and soy-free pig farmer to find quality pork in the United States. But I felt so much better and amazing. This is where I felt the truly kind of healing part. And so when I came back to the United States, I wanted to promote the carnivore-based diet. I'm like, hey, look at everything I learned in my dietetics courses about the food pyramid. It's complete bullshit. You really don't eat carbs, and you shouldn't demonize meat. So I actually just preferred. I was like, look, meat healed me, and I want to promote the word. And I was going to consider getting my master's in dietetics. And the master's program told me, when I said I want to flip the food pyramid upside down, they didn't like that, so they didn't want me to be a candidate. So I got my MBA. But the thing that motivated me to run for Congress was the vaccine mandates. Okay, so being personally effed up from pharmaceuticals, when they kind of announced the vaccine kind of rollouts and it was getting promoted by Bill Gates, I knew it was FOS, full of shit. So I spoke out against the vaccine mandates in LA County, because I was speaking on behalf of all these government employees, but also a lot of healthcare workers, because they're trying to force the vaccines going into 2021, August 5th, 2021, which is actually the main date for most of the 50 states. they indicated that they're going to be mandating vaccines to keep your employment. And when I spoke out against them, and I actually spoke highly against the vaccines and all those stupid masks, a lot of my own other attorneys in my profession, they try to report me to the state bar, and some of my former clients try to report me to the state bar, and people that saw me on LinkedIn try to report me to the state bar. They threw away all the complaints, but it motivated me to run for Congress because I was like, you know what? I looked at most people in Congress, they have a background in law, which I already have. So more than half of your presidents in the entire United States history were attorneys. So, but I was like, but some of them had a public policy, and they had like an associate's or a bachelor's degree. I'm like, what if I get my PhD in public policy, and I'm an attorney, and I come from the health industry, and I'm also a real estate broker, and I also got my MBA. I think I want to cover all bases because I want to make sure I can help out the American public in any type of capacity. So I decided to get my PhD, and I just finished off my PhD, become Dr. Brandalin, and I made my announcement on Fox News that I'm running for the House of Representatives in Nevada because that's my preferred state because I'm a dual resident. I go back and forth between California and Nevada every week. And that's why I'm getting my pilot license right now, too, because I just want to get faster. So I've already done, 6 to 7 hours of flight lessons. I got to do the minimum 40, and I'm going to become a pilot, too. But, yeah, and luckily I have a lot of support from the carnivore community, including the carnivore doctors. I mean, Dr. Shafee, I've been working with him and helping him out personally for the last couple of years. He's given me the shout-outs. But now that we say we may actually, we have a possibility of having a carnivore lawyer or a carnivore representative in one out of 435 members of the House of Representatives. That's going to be this is going to be a chance for everybody's voice to be heard at higher levels. Because I am completely against pharmaceuticals. I don't like the fact that pharmaceutical companies are basically controlling all of Congress because they fund 2/3 of Congress. This is why a lot of these people in Congress are like promoting, pharmaceuticals and vaccines, and this is why they promoted the vaccine mandates in a lot of the states. And they are controlling our medical schools. So all of your future doctors, they're taught primarily pharmacology, and I think I verified this with like 15 of my podcasts and with all doctors. They confirmed that they studied very little nutrition. So nutrition is like, for the most prestigious medical schools in all the United States, they spend less than 20 hours total. And this is thousands of hours they spent because they have the residencies too. Okay, so depending on like what kind of practice area, and this is a problem that our future doctors don't know SHIT about nutrition. So that's my quick story.
Before we go any further with this video, I'd like to shout out our sponsor, which is me and my book. So, you guys, I wrote a book. It's called The Carnivore Diet for Teens. It's for teens, it's for parents of teens, and it's for anybody interested in the carnivore lifestyle. This book is on Amazon only, and I suggest you go buy it because it helps support me and this channel. The more money I make from this book, the better content I can put out. So that's all I have to say from your sponsor today.
Yeah. I'm not selling anything, but I will call for donations at a later point. I never wanted to beg donations from the carnivore community for up front because I want to build their trust. And the primary season for my campaign, so I'm going for the 2026 elections, which is the midterm elections, because the presidential elections are every 4 years. The midterms is right in between, so it's in November, but I have to win the Republican primary. I have to win the Republican primary, which is in June of 2026. So the primary season will be in January. That'll be more intense.
Okay. So I have some questions for you, Christopher.
Sure.
These are not carnivore related. I feel like your carnivore story is so out there. What I want to talk about is pharmaceuticals.
Sure.
So the first thing I have written down is acetaminophen. Definitely not saying that right. But I just saw something come out where they're saying that the Tylenol has an impact on autism for pregnant women. And you've seen it, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's more than one thing affecting the autism. The vaccines are probably very linked based on some of the research submissions. But, I mean, pharmaceuticals in general, they have so many different side effects. And whatever you put in your mouth is going to affect you head to toe, including your brain. This is where and you're going to see a bunch of liberals pop in Tylenol as much as possible to try to defeat that. And they're only going to get dumber. It's just kind of like where people want to wear masks. And I'm like, we actually have a litany of studies that show that wearing masks excessively makes you dumber. It actually accelerates dementia. So that's why I always tell people that are wearing masks 24/7, like not only do you look dumber, you're actually getting dumber. But yeah, I think there is some kind of veracity with that statement, is that Tylenol could be linked to autism. But I think there's a lot of factors too. I mean, autism, like if you realize the ketogenic diet, which was kind of developed like over a century ago, it wasn't developed for people losing weight. It was developed for autism and epilepsy. So it's already been proven to help those kind of situations. So a low carb or a very strict or zero carb diet is one of the best things. And carbohydrates have been proven to basically cause a lot of cognition issues too, especially sugar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I recently saw a video of Bill Gates floating around on my For You page, and I don't know if you've seen this video, and
No.
I actually don't know if it's clipped or not, but he was talking about if we vaccinate the American population, if we get them all on the FDA diet, if we get them all on this and that, then in 10 to 15 years, we will have a 10 to 15% decrease in population. I don't know if you've seen that clip. But,
so it was an admission that if we keep getting vaccinated, we're going to reduce the population.
Yes.
Yeah, him and Kamala Harris like slipped on. They stepped on their own toes more than once. So yeah, he's one of the guys I hate probably the most. Not only does he look like shit, I mean,
We're coming for you, Bill Gates.
Yeah. There's no inciting of violence. I would not incite violence against that, because that is restricted by the recent U.S. codes. Because I actually did a reel on basically what's protected and versus unprotected speech. But inciting violence. But I know I would love to see him just rot in prison the rest of his life and just get butt raped by P. Diddy. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you know what I'd like to see is in 20 years when he's dead and buried, like everything coming out, right? Like everything that he did.
It's gonna come out faster. I don't think he's got enough control. That's why we need more voices.
So, do you know about John and Will Kellogg?
Is this where they're actually developing part of the cereal is that they actually wanted to make men more impotent? They wanted to control sexual urges is like one of the
Yeah. So John Kellogg was a Seventh-day Adventist, and he was really good friends with the wife and husband pair that founded Seventh-day Adventists, and this was in like 1830s, 1850s.
Yeah.
And he thought like if he were to perform certain surgeries on men and women that he could decrease like sexual sin, purity, like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, probably decrease your testosterone and all this other thing too. So yeah.
Yeah, like I don't really want to get into it because I feel like my audience maybe like it's a bit weird. Anyways,
did you know the average Democrat has lower testosterone? It's actually been proven by studies.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about cornflakes in particular.
Okay.
And I saw the new CEO of Kellogg in a video promoting. It was on like the news channel that all like the people like the stock buyers are watching. So I don't think it's like high access to the public, but or it was one of the cereal companies. It might not have been Kellogg. Talking about how addictive cereals are. And basically somebody asked him, hey, what should poor people eat for breakfast? And he was like, cereal, 1, it's highly addictive, so they'll buy more. 2, it's fairly cheap, so they can buy more. And like keeping going on about how addictive and how cheap this was.
Well, that's what they say. Sugar is just like probably more addictive than cocaine nowadays.
Yeah, it is. And then South Carolina just passed a new law banning abortion. It's called SB 323. I don't know the specifics on it, but they just banned abortion. But also, what qualifies as life in the state of South Carolina is fertilization. So they changed it to fertilization. So now South Carolina is looking at banning birth controls. How do you feel about that? Like pill birth controls, not like condoms and stuff.
Okay, yeah. I was told that you can be pro-condom and pro-choice, which probably made me a happier person in college. But I actually attended a very interesting function on this topic on Saturday. So I was invited. The Nevada Republican Club invited me to attend, and they actually announced me too. Basically it was actually by the Liberty. It was by the Liberty League. And it was actually a pro-life movement, basically, on the reasons and all consequences of having abortions. It's a lot more than people realize. And they basically had a lot of doctors speaking about when life is truly, when it actually constitutes an actual human, and it's at the point of conception. And there's a lot of misbeliefs. And I think the liberals' attack to that is so offside, is that there's actually a group of liberals that said, yeah, well, babies, they're just parasites until they're actually born. And I was like, do you know that you were a baby at once and that means you're a parasite? But they refuse to acknowledge it. But then again, speaking with Democrats sometimes is like speaking against to a brick wall. I mean, there's no sense. It's almost futile because there's no kind of logic on the other end. But yeah, but one of the things that they recognize is that, even if a person doesn't have the finances or is not mature enough to raise a baby, there is a humongous group of reputable foster parents who are looking to take care of kids. There's a larger group than people realize. It's not like no one wants me. I'm like, no, there's a good group of people that, due to health reasons, they cannot conceive a child, but they want to raise a child. They would love to call a child of their own. And this is where we want to get more resources out, that, you know what, if you impregnated yourself, and if you don't want to keep it because of own personal reasons, have the child. But we'll assist you with a facility where you can get a caregiver. So, yeah, but there's a lot of facilities that people need to be aware of. I think a lot of people should look into on where life really begins, because it's actually earlier than the point of conception. I mean, the fertilization is going to be one thing, but yeah, that's one thing a lot of people more should recognize. And I know, but it's every state's going to have their own definitions. Of course, your blue states are going to kind of promote gender affirming therapy, sex changes, everything else like that. And they're going to promote like having cricket ingredients in your food without telling you about it. They're going to be promoting vaccinating the animals without telling you about it. And this is why I'm trying to leave a blue state of California to go over to a more red state of Nevada.
Mm-hmm. So the only one thing that I can find that is coming out of this giant infertility crisis we have in America is that the fact that these women and couples, families, whatever you want to call them, who are having children out of wedlock and don't want them, can actually give them to these parents who want children and can't have them. And that's the only thing I can see coming out of this giant infertility epidemic we have in America.
Yeah, I think they want, if they feel that it was a mistake, because look, I was told I was an accident at 8 years old. And maybe this is kind of what motivated me to be better than my two older brothers, because I don't really look up to my two older brothers. They're completely different from me. And in fact, after I went through training and got a lot more better, competitive and better in shape, I kind of told them that they're my two little sisters. But let's just say I was told actually more than once I was an accident growing up. So, but that's not going to encourage, I don't think that should discourage anybody, because I truly believe that God puts everybody on this earth for a reason. That's why I think God put me on this earth for a reason. But people need to recognize that there are other people to take care of. And if you're given the chance to a child to grow and develop myself like I have, because if I was never here, I could probably never got all this done. I could probably not help out the carnivore community and provide free legal seminars like I've been doing. But I think people need to recognize that they're here on this earth for the reason. And when people want to talk about being pro-choice, just remember that baby inside of you also has a choice to live.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. How do you think America increasing their red meat? Well, okay, hold on, let me re-ask this.
Yeah.
Do you think your campaign could possibly help America? No, not campaign. That is the wrong word.
Oh, you can use campaign. That's all right. My campaign is for better health.
Okay.
It's not just to get in the house. I actually want to improve the health. I want to get people off pharmaceuticals. I want to help American farmers. I want to make meat more affordable again. And I actually have a podcast with a couple farmers on some ideas. In addition to just subsidies to farmers, it's also about getting more ability to have more broader pastures, basically, to raise the animals and kind of improve regenerative farming. So there's a lot of different ways. And but yeah, I mean, going back to your question, like you can use the word campaign. But finish off your questions before I finish my answer.
So do you think your campaign could help America increase its red meat consumption?
I think we should. It's what we've been eating for 2.5 million years. And every time you're seeing people eat less meat, we have more problems. It's that look at the low fat craze started in the 1970s and kind of really took a bigger hit in the 1980s, where they demonized fat, but they also demonized meat, and this is where they started decrease your red meat intake. And this they did this because they said we have a heart disease epidemic that we're going to try to combat. So cardiovascular disease or heart disease, they said we're going to try to, but ever since they started decreasing, having all this low fat crap, and by the way, when you decrease the fat, what do you think they add? They add sugars, right? And they demonize meat. We're having less red meat. We actually seen cardiovascular disease double or nearly triple ever since then, the rate. So their methods are not really helping us. So yeah, I think people need to learn that red meat does not cause cancer. It does not cause heart disease. It's complete bullcrap. And if they ever did any kind of studies showing that, oh, these people that ate some red meat had heart disease, what else were they eating? Because it doesn't matter if you're just eating red meat. If you're eating a bunch of crap with it, an excessive amount of seed oils and sugars, just the fact that you're eating meat should not be directly related to say that red meat causes cancer.
Yeah. So I really don't think red meat causes cancer. If anything, it probably helps cancer patients.
Yeah, and actually and Thomas Seyfried, like the head research doctor on cancer being a mitochondrial disease, said the same effing thing. So you got one of the head research doctors at Boston College telling you that red meat does not cause cancer, but a lot of liberals, they try to ignore that because most, I'm pretty sure not to make this too political, but did you know that a vegan is 3 times more likely to be a Democrat than a Republican? And there's another study behind that.
I think that just has a lot to do with red states are very big agriculture states.
Yeah, we like to protect our farmers.
Yes. And when you're in the farming industry or in the equine industry or in, bull riding, rodeoing, whatever, it's brisket, it's barbecue, it's hamburgers. Yeah, that's the kind of food you're eating. You're not going to a vegan cafe to have a matcha. Like that's not cowboying it up. That is
you don't see cowboys nibbling on carrots all day. No, it's complete bull crap. And that's actually where my bull riding camp, they actually promoted a really heavy diet of like bacon and eggs in the morning and steak at night. So
Yeah, no, I really do think the rodeoing industry, I think a lot of people in there should change the diet because when you're living on the road, like you're living off of fast food and that's not good for you. But I think if we had a reform and like rodeoing could be brought back to like a lot of red meat and, like staying at, local farms instead of staying at like a nice hotel or whatever.
Well, you just won't have any option. But
yeah,
if you think about it, almost every city, every restaurant, you'll have an option. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's really simple. You eat the meat, you don't eat anything else, and you just tell the waitress that, okay? Yeah. And then if you're looking at convenience stores, just get some beef jerky and pork rinds and try to get the beef jerky with the least amount of shit in it. And and you can always find eggs and bacon anywhere else. I mean, the bacon may have a little bit of sugar and nitrites, whatever they put on it, but that's going to be your best option. A lot of the bull riding students, because I trained with all bull riding students who were in high school and college, they asked me, like, someone in college, like, we're on the road, and we like the fact that you're able to keep up with us, and you just turned 40 and you're an attorney, but we looked you up, and we know that you're the carnivore lawyer, so what should we eat on, like, they were asking me, like, what should we eat on the road? I was like, dude, there's always options. You just get some here. I actually gave them, like, in addition to having the carnivore bar, which could be more expensive, but adds really good quality stuff. But I was like, look, if you're looking for beef jerky, I gave them the brands with, like, the zero sugar brands and the least, like, amount of crap. I'm like, but if you want to get, like, the purest stuff, you can find that. But I just told them, like, just whenever you find a restaurant, just be very particular. You can go to In-N-Out and just get, like, the meat-only option, basically. Yeah. I did that with a client one time because she wanted to go to In-N-Out, like, during a mediation. I was like, just get me, like, 8 patties. So I just got 8 hamburger patties. That's all I ate. And she was eating all that animal style fry bullshit, and I was like, and she felt like crap afterwards. Yeah, I can go for another 5 hours. Let's go.
Yeah. Well, and then making your own pemmican, which is the same thing in carnivore bar, is really easy. Like, I will meal prep and probably make 10 at a time. But if you buy like one of them cheap dehydrators, like with the plastic trays, now I'm against microplastics, but you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
I make my own beef jerky too.
yeah, you take raw ground beef, like pat it super thin, or like take a
Then,
rolling pin.
yes, but it dries out
Put it on the dehydrator trays. I do low because eating raw meat is better for you. It stays raw when you do it at low. And then you do half dry. You
And
want to make sure
I
it's
eat raw
dry
meat
and
every
like
day too.
snaps. You want it to snap. Half tallow, half ground beef. And the easiest way I found to make it is that my dehydrator has a drip tray on the bottom. So I'll get really fatty ground beef, and it takes a lot longer. But you do that, and then you save all the drippings and use that instead of tallow, and it's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
That's how I make my pemmican, but it is fairly easy. What are some red flag words like in the healthcare system, in food labels that are red flags, but they sound good?
Well, can you give me an example of a red flag on a food that would say, I talk about high amount of saturated fat could cause heart disease. Some of their BS. I mean, that's kind of one of them. Saturated fat, because everybody demonizes saturated fat when it's got benefits to it. They don't differentiate between seed oils, and I already did another video on the fact that a lot of manufacturers are allowed to put a crap load of trans fats are still prevalent too, but they can show zero trans fats, but that's only in each serving. So what they do is if the serving size has less than a half a gram of trans fat, they can advertise as 0 grams of trans fats. But the problem is they make the serving size a half a teaspoon, and they have a couple thousand servings in a food. So people are eating this stuff and thinking they're not eating trans fats, when in reality they're probably eating a couple hundred grams. They're eating less than a half a gram of a couple million servings. Yeah. So that's another thing. And then look at the whole low fat thing. That's a red flag. Okay, if anything says low fat, then what did you do to make it low fat to basically make up for the fat that you took out? And half the time, more than half the time, maybe 90% of the time, they increase the carbohydrates. Basically, they increase the sugars. So, and yeah, you're eating low fat, but you're eating high sugar. And you know what? Now that I learned the real benefits of an animal-based fat, yeah, I'd rather eat a lot more fat than eat any sugar. So yeah, this is where people need to realize that fat, animal-based fat from quality food should not be demonized. But yeah, the low fat and or plant-based. I mean, plant-based is another red flag. I'm like, what is it plant-based? And usually it's a lot of chemicals with it, and all the chemicals or byproducts are from like soy is one of the worst things you can do, but they promote soy because soybeans are a plant. So plant-based is another kind of red flag, or I call it a shit food, but that's another thing you can consider.
One of the main things I was thinking of is when a food says no sugar added on it, because in America, the laws are that it's no sugar added after production. So
after production, exactly. It still has sugar in it, and it's just no additional sugar. But yeah, it's well, I kind of make that reference to people that drink fruit. And one of the big problems I have with a lot of hospitals, because I had a lot of relatives go through some major surgeries, and they lay down, they got to be in the bed for a couple days after surgery, not even for gut, just orthopedic, and they always bring them a fruit basically just fruit punch packets, but they're like, oh, I'm having a lot of orange juice, I'm having a lot of apple juice. I'm like, you're drinking straight fructose. That is deadly to you. I just didn't realize it. And so now that I realized, I'm like, it's not just making changes to the entire health. We have to make major changes to our public healthcare system of what they're going to be providing to patients to heal, and what they're going to be providing to schools. I don't think schools should be giving up all this sugar shit to the candy or to the kids. Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Okay, hold on. Let me read. I'm gonna edit that a little bit out. Okay. What's your take on food dyes being banned, and then on top of that, what else should be banned?
Yeah, Dr. Shafee, my client, made the best point. He's like, the problem is not that you're eating, that there's red food dyes in your cereal or in your Fruit Loops. The problem is you're eating Fruit Loops. I don't think, as much as I admire Bobby Kennedy for doing that, I think we need to eliminate sugar. Okay, why are you eating all this processed shit anyways? Because just because it doesn't have food dye now, it doesn't mean it has a lot of other crap that's going to be detrimental to your health. So I actually just really insult people that eat cereal every day, and gladly.
Well, I will say that if you eat cereal every day, you should join the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't get your dick up anymore, right? Sorry, I know Democrats have those problems, but they usually don't have balls to begin with. So I don't know. Sorry, I'm invited to different podcasts for my political humor too, so it's all right.
Oh no! It's funny. I'm fine with like the liberal jokes, but I'm like I get scared because I do have like audience that are like
Oh yeah, I know.
very liberal.
You
And
know
I've
what? I
had
actually admire one of the guys I actually admire the most, Bill Maher. I hope he may rise because he's an old school Democrat.
yeah.
Old school Democrats, and actually some of my close friends who are also attorneys, they're also old school Democrats, and that's why they actually can agree with a lot of my values. And they even say, like, I'm pretty embarrassed with how our political party has become over the years. It used to be different, and hopefully it goes back to what it used to be. And maybe at some point when they get their heads out of their asses, we can finally, find some bipartisan topics to reach a compromise. And that's why I believe health should be a bipartisan topic.
Mm-hmm.
Health is such a major issue right now in today's world that it should require both parties to come together, reach a compromise, and come up with some kind of resolution that's going to improve the health of the American people, and not the pockets of all these pharmaceutical companies that are paying them to think a different way. Yeah.
Okay, hold on. I got a really good question, but I gotta wait for my light to come back on.
Okay.
Okay. Do you think the American government is intentionally poisoning its population by processed foods?
Well, the American government as a whole, that's a very broad statement, but I believe there are some people in Congress who are getting funded from pharmaceutical companies and big corporations. Remember, there's two things. There's big pharma and big corporations. They're both affiliated with each other, but it really depends. And this is why I think that big corporations who are also funding a lot of Congress are basically influencing their policies, because these people in Congress, first of all, a lot of them don't know SHIT about health. A lot of them don't know SHE about nutrition. And most of the time, if they're making a direction or if they're voting for a certain policy, it's because of who is paying them in their back pocket. And if they're going to be promoting processed foods, it's most likely going to be because big corporations, such as Tyson and a couple other ones, are basically paying them to think that way. And so I don't want to say everybody, because one thing I do like is I'm not sure if you know Congressman Tom Massey. I met with him a few times. I met him in D.C. and we went to a function here in actually it was Orange County, part of California. But I don't agree with everything that he's saying against some of the other Republicans right now. But but I do agree that he is one of the ones. One thing I like about him is he actually spoke out for the American farmers more than any kind of other congressman, even though he's hated by a good portion of he's a Republican, but there's, Republicans have their own civil war. One of the things I value and appreciate of him is that he actually speaks out for promoting raw dairy. When I saw him speak in DC in January, I met with Bobby Kennedy's team. He said, "How many of you guys want to see more raw milk on your shelves?" I was like, "My God, you would never expect like a congressman to say that." But yeah, I don't think every person in Congress is bad, and I think there's a lot of good. But remember, Congress is you got what? You have 100 senators, you have 435 people of the House of Representatives, and you have a lot of people within the administration. Then you have all these different departments, and all of them can be considered part of Congress when you think about it, right? Even the judiciary system too. But yeah, I don't think all of them are bad, but I think there are some of them who are voting for certain policies, but they're voting based on the money they're receiving in their back pocket.
So I recently saw a movement on social media that's talking about bringing back microfarming. It's I think it's a nonprofit company. You apply, they give you a grant, and they help you set up your own microfarm. So they buy you cattle, goats, help you like learn how to grow vegetables, etc.
Yeah.
And then I saw a lot in the comments saying in 2 years this is going to be banned, in 10 years it's going to be banned. Like you're not going to be allowed to have this in America. And then I saw the company somewhere saying that that's why they made it international.
So even if it's banned in the United States, you're going to have some countries that think a little bit more logically, like Italy. Maybe I'm proud. By the way, with their current prime minister, I'm so proud of her. She was one of the first to ban lab grown meat. So Maloney. So yeah, I think certain countries will recognize, and that there are certain countries that are starting, like, you know, due to a recent election, they're making changes. Ireland may be another one, even though a lot of people question Conor McGregor, and he may actually win because he is a little psychotic. But I think he's someone that's speaking for the people, and he is one probably that would promote a lot more farming practices than anything else. He's against big corporations as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like America is getting so developed. I mean, like, literally, I live in a pretty, you know, well agriculture area. Like, there's a lot of farms, and a lot of these farms are getting bought out and developed. And, you know, in 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30 years,
well,
there's no farms left in America.
Yeah, exactly. This is my biggest issue, and this is where I have reached a consensus with all the farmers I'm speaking with, because I buy from 25 different farmers throughout the year. But I actually have a podcast with some of them coming up. But, you know, the major issue with farmers is that, let's say, did you know that Bill Gates is probably the largest private land owner of farmland in the United States? He owns 275,000 acres of farmland, and he's promoted for his lab-grown meats. But what he also does, he buys out the farmland and then he leases it out to the farmers, but on his own conditions. And there's other big corporations that are big companies that are doing, like Vanguard and BlackRock. And there's foreign countries doing it too. People don't realize that foreign countries still own a huge portion of farmland. Like China and Russia own farmland in the United States. And this is where I agree with J.D. Vance, is because I don't think they should own a blade of grass. That's what he says. But what happens is it makes it unaffordable for the farmers to operate, because they are basically, you know, they're buying out the farmland, so they're creating a monopoly on farmland, and they make it unaffordable for the farmers to continue to practice. And we've had the highest rates of bankruptcy filings by farmers in the last couple of years. They just can't continue, and this is one of the other reasons why the prices of meat are going up. It's almost they're not able to sustain their farming practices and even basically pay their own mortgage. So yeah, I think we should restrict. And Charlie Kirk actually said the same thing. Well, he didn't say it on farms. He said it mainly on a broader topic about how people want to be able to afford homes. He's like, yeah, well, but the problem is a lot of these major apartment complexes and buildings, they're all getting bought by these major investors, and then what they do is they buy it out and they lease it out only to the people that can afford it. So it's unconscionable, basically. It's unaffordable, and that's what's happening to the farmers as well.
It's really sad, because now the only farming that is profitable is corn farming and grain farming, because that's mostly what our population, you know, eats. And because this is the reason why this is so profitable is because you have brands like Kellogg and Kraft and
money
other brands.
Well, money creates power, and this is something that we need someone to step in and say, your money is not going to step in this power.
Yeah. And I think about, you know, wheat, and I don't inherently think all wheat is bad, but like all of our wheat now is not even like wheat. This is kind of going back to why you can actually eat pasta in Italy. And you won't get sick and you won't get as fat compared to like pasta in the United States, because it's just processed over here. You have no idea. You're probably eating more chemicals than actual wheat. Yeah. Well, and also in Italy, and their lifestyle, they walk everywhere.
Yeah, they're more active.
You know, they're happy. They have their cigarettes and they have like their cigarettes and like they talk daily. Like they are so community based.
Yeah, they're more active, and you see a lot of people in the United States. This is like a lot of our future generation. I actually spoke out to the kids on Sunday, like in Las Vegas, about like, you know, addictions, because they like me. The parents chose me because they know that I'm very anti-pharmaceuticals. There's a big fentanyl addiction that's still like nationwide, so I spoke on that topic. But I noticed a lot of the kids, the majority of the kids, are all just. My younger generation, they're all playing video games. We had video games when I was younger, but it wasn't as popular, and we got outside more. And since I've been an athlete most of my life, I've always been outdoors. I'd rather, like, I lived close to the beach growing up, so I'd rather go to the beach all day. So, yeah, but that's a bigger problem is that, Americans are much less active than a lot of other countries. And that's why I'm really against video games. I think that's completely ruining our younger generation.
Well, what are kids doing all day? They wake up at 6 a.m. They brush their teeth.
They don't even wake up at 6. A lot of them sleep until like 7:30 or so.
Well, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
It depends on what time their school bus comes.
Yeah.
The first thing they do is look at blue light, and then they get up, they put their school clothes on, and then they hop on a school bus and ride to school, or they get driven to school, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they sit at a desk for 7-8 hours a day. And what do they do for at 9 a.m. or certain schools? They eat breakfast, which is sugar, and then they eat lunch, which is more processed sugar, and then after that they go home and then they sit on their butt and play video games for the rest of the night.
They eat potato chips and play video games for 5 to 6 hours.
Yes. And then sometimes they stay up till 2, 3, 5 in the morning and don't get any sleep and then have to repeat it.
Yeah.
And that is causing severely high amounts of cortisol, reducing testosterone, reducing HGH. It is just causing.
And this is why they're so mentally unstable too.
Yes. And then, it's causing mental issues. It's causing people to be suicidal, have no willpower, anxiety, like so many other things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a huge list of problems that our kids are developing. And not just that, you just see it nowadays. So you just see these kids walking around and you're like, not only are they overweight, that you could just look that they're just mentally disturbed. And frankly, a lot of times I'm a little concerned because you can't even tell if it's a boy or girl nowadays.
Well, and then I think that goes back to SB 323, where we're talking about banning birth control. If they ban birth control, like pills, then the amount of estrogens in our water system will decrease, and then little boys won't be developing boobs.
Yeah, that's it. It's all connected in some way or another.
Yeah, I think it's a really sad reality that we live in. Where Well, is there anything else?
No, you're the one asking the questions, but hey, but actually I'll say a couple things because I know I'm going to do another follow-up with you on different topics because I'll make myself available to do that. But if anybody wants to reach out to me, now since I got kicked off of LinkedIn, I'm mainly on Facebook, Instagram, and X, and I set up an account on TikTok, but TikTok people are too crazy. That's where I actually got a lot of threats lately. Is just some crazy liberals on TikTok. But my campaign site is chrisbrandalin.com. If people have some legal inquiries, they can reach out to me to brandlinlaw.com. But I'm more than happy. And I'm also going to be, I'm actually hosting or either hosting or co-hosting a lot of events in the next 6 months. I'm trying to fly around. If I have to fly over to South Carolina, we can set something up. But but I'm co-hosting the Fort Worth meetup this Saturday, right before my bull riding contest, because my bull riding contest is down the street from the steakhouse. And then October 11th, I'm hosting a meetup up in Reno, Nevada. So people that go like to Tahoe area, if they're going to be around there. And then I'm hosting one in LA October 25th. That's going to be actually maybe a larger one. I know Dr. Kiltz wants to come to that one too. So we'll have him and a bunch of people in we'll call that the Southern California meetup. And then I'm also hosting one in Atlanta, Georgia, second week of December. And I'm hosting that with Shannon Davis. She's a registered dietitian and she's part of the carnivore community as well. And then I'm hosting one in Arizona, January 16th on a Sunday. I'm hosting that at a steakhouse with Dr. Sabrina Solt. I call her the carnivore regenerative doctor because she actually injected stem cells in me more than once. And she actually, because I fractured my tailbone so many different times. So I told her I'm probably going to see her right after the bull riding contest too. So we're hosting that one. And then I'm going to be doing another one in Vegas. It's going to be probably February, but I may actually do one in Canada just because I have a lot of my Canadian carnivores, even though they can't vote for me and they're not allowed to donate to me. I told them I would go support all the carnivores in Canada. So we're setting up something in Alberta. It's probably going to be also in January too.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I think this video has came to a very well-rounded end. Make sure to go follow Chris, support his campaign if that's something you believe in. And also make sure to subscribe, like, and comment on this video if there's a topic you disagree in. Maybe one day me and Chris can set up a debate. That would be really fun. I would really love to do that. So if you do disagree, please let me know. And if you agree with something or have something else you think needs to be brought up, please let me know down in the comments below. With that, I would like for everybody to have a very good rest of their day. Bye. Oh God.